ahead and start. Today is January 9th, 2024. Welcome to the new year. This is a 5 o'clock board meeting. We're going to go ahead and start by introducing who's here. Julie, will you go ahead?
Julie Jackson. Kim Chandler.
Connie Burgess.
Chris Wynn. Karen Wender.
Clark Nelson.
Todd Hauber.
Rich Nye.
And Nicole McDermott. All right, we are going to go ahead and get started. We have first up our capital and construction update, and turn the time over to Don and his team.
Thank you very much, board members. Excited to be here on what could be a blustery winter evening. Starting off just our security upgrade timeline, we'll be doing Silver Hills this spring and summer. So that's the one active on the to be constructed, and a couple that are awaiting design and implementation over the next year or so. Upcoming projects, again, just to kind of give you an idea of what's on our plate and what we hope to construct over the next year. The expansion at Hunter High. We have 2 fueling stations, one at transportation and one in the maintenance yard. Under state regulation, we have to replace the underground tanks and pumps by 2025. So that's a you shall do it command from the state. So we'll be working on those. We had talked about our security problem here with vehicles are always getting broken into and vandalized. So we have some reviews on a vehicle parking lot compound, if you will. We talked about the upgrade to our doors that have served their life here at GEC. And then we're working on design and bidding out Lake Ridge and West Valley, some parking lot failures that would require pretty extensive work out there digging and repaving. So those should be coming to you. You'll see those on board agendas in the next few months. A lot of our boiler replacement, HVAC, and ESSER projects are moving along as quickly as we can. Material lead items still working for us, but as the ESSER deadline appears imminent in 2024, the hustle is out there. But Hunter, Valley Crest, Hillside, Granite Park, and those are pretty much done. Punch list items, few items to be covered. The additional AC upgrade in Taylorsville High to air condition the gymnasium, moving along, waiting on a few items such as the fan rooms and et cetera to reach us. I heard that those are a March 9 delivery, so there's going to be a bit of a pause and then a push into March. Some controls upgrades at Bridger, moving along fairly well. Boiler at Pleasant Green, 50%, so we have one old and one new, just waiting for the next new one to arrive so we can keep the school heated during the winter as we move through that project. And then, again, we're still working on a couple of tweaks to the complex system at Hunter High. The GEC seemingly never going to end project. Most of the componentry is now installed. Should be able to wrap that up by February, March. And believe it or not, the heat loads at this facility, we actually start air conditioning in March. So it'll be just in time to do that. Copper Hills, again, that was a very old chiller, uses the old refrigerant style, so we'll be able to march through that. It's about 60% complete, getting everything piped in time for summer. And then we call it the Five Sisters. The Diamond Ridge model was never equipped with a mechanical chiller system. It was a direct, indirect AC, basically a really fancy commercial swamp cooler. And so if you ever walked in those schools, they always felt a little musty. So we're upgrading those, and those are just underway. And the William Penn side's a little complex because it requires an outside construction. So it'll lag a little bit, but it should be done in time for kids coming back to school in August 24th.
Is there any interruption to the school for those chiller?
No, all behind scenes, everything should be smooth, and the direct, indirect will be operational during the springtime when we need it. Truman, they spent their first full week in relos, so the move happened. Principal communicated the day that it was better than expected, and they were soldiering on, so we're appreciative of that. We've gotten the majority of the demolition done and ready to proceed. You actually have the GMP price on your agenda tonight. So once hopefully that gets passed by the board, we'll be able to get everything ordered and really start to get things moving out there. But there are a couple of pictures of how things are progressing. Thank you. So again, just that outside mechanical room is being constructed right now. Some of the electrical is being pulled in. So behind the scenes work is happening. Nothing super exciting, but it's building the foundation that gets us our backbone, that gets us the ventilation upgrades there. The GEC, again, that was an ESSER II funding cycle for a teen center. And so they did a teen center here to reach out to those kids in need in kind of the South Salt Lake area. And Justin has some very good pictures as we finish up and go through punch through. Similar to the concept at Cottonwood High School, but again, on a much smaller scale here. Just a kudos to the internal team. This was an internal design so that our internal designers did this work, bid that contract out, and the contractor's doing a pretty good job for us. First time we use them, and hopefully to use them again.
Can I ask real quick,
Yes, ma'am.
what's the difference between this one and Cottonwood? What is taken out because it's smaller?
It just is smaller. There's not as, the little kitchenette is not as large. We don't expect to serve as many students. Therefore, it's scaled to what they expect the service model to be. One shower stall, restroom combination, fewer kitchen, smaller study space because we don't expect that many kids to come in. Is that
right? I was going to say that we don't have that. We have some cubicles for the admin team there, but we don't have the breakout little isolated office study rooms that we did at Cottonwood, if you recall those.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Westlake. Exciting things at Westlake, and you've seen the pictures. Glass continues to happen, which is exciting to kind of get it closed in for the winter. Now that winter is here upon us, the subcontractors love closed-in building. It stays warmer, and they're able to not get that breezy air blowing through there. We'll see the pictures of that in just a minute. The installation of interior finishes, some areas tile, paint, ceiling grid. You'll see that, light fixtures. And then some of our last final concrete slab pour. We'll see that here on the north end. So there's the south end, looking at the two-story media center above and teacher collaboration space below. But you see the glass going in, which is super exciting. And this was before the winter hit us, obviously, last week or week and a half ago. Again, more glass. You see tile in the corridors going down. All kinds of the trade work, HVAC. Water lines, all that good stuff. Painting is happening though as well. Boiler room with pumps and piping. To the right is that concrete. That's the commons area looking to the north. They pour the concrete now. The floor is in, and the ceiling is on. You can see they've got to get the glass on that far north end. But other than that, I think we're out of the concrete business, which is good, and we're moving to finishes, which is great. And then there was no change orders that needed to come before the board this last meeting. We did continue to work with Sarah, the principal there at Westlake, and her team, and we're about ready to finalize the furniture order. I noticed that you have on your agenda today for Skylines furniture, but Westlake is not that far behind. We'll have it ready for next month's board meeting and get that ordered in time. We will include, as there was a discussion last month, we will include a couple of baby grand pianos, and there's some weight room equipment that will be provided as well as part of the budget from the FF&E side of things. So it won't cost the school any money to take care of that. And with that, I'll turn to Chris.
So similar to the pictures you just see, you're going to see a lot of what looks like really clean, clear sites. And obviously, as of this last week, that's no longer the case. So we were really, really fortunate for the months of November and December to have excellent working conditions at both of the Cypress and Skyline campuses, and able to perform quite a bit of work, as you can see from the list here. Site work, which is rapidly coming to an abbreviated halt at the moment at Cypress. There's more than a fair amount of snow and accumulation out there right now. But interior-wise, there's a considerable amount of work going on with the athletics facility is marching more and more. It's looking like, much more like a completed facility. The pool area is accelerating quite rapidly. There's tile, there's other kinds of finishes going throughout. The CTE building is moving rapidly. If you remember from our updates last month, we stood the last panels there, and the interior partitions and framing are going on quite a bit, and we've got the metal decking on the breezeway. The academic building, the second and third levels, the top stores, if you remember, we go 0, 1, 2, 3 in describing the stories. So we've got paint and drywall looking and performing quite well. And then the glass installation, which is a critical factor, like Justin indicated. You know, it's not just in the enclosed space. We've had the building enclosed and heated for a while, but there's a large difference between having all the window openings plywooded over and curtained and different things, and working in a cave versus working in the glassed-in final condition like it's supposed to be in. So that's been going very well. And then the Performing Arts Center is working hand in hand with the upper stories on the academic building in terms of performance. Like I indicated, there's some lovely site work that we were able to do in December that normally we're not able to perform in terms of concrete. Some of that's probably going to drop off over the next couple months until we see the spring word again. So, but the buildings will continue to go, like as shown here with the ceiling grid in the athletic building level 1, the locker room, framing, drywall. This is on the west side. The east side has been done for quite some time, and then the tile in the lifeguard room. Actually, I guess that locker room framing is the pool locker room area. The mechanical yard tilt panels, the framing and stuff on the breezeway connecting to the CTE building. And then the classroom wing, if you've seen you'll see some of the pictures at Skyline on the upper floors, and the upper floors here are marching right alongside of it. So we're doing exceptionally well schedule-wise. Westland's doing a great job out there. And then the kiln, all of those lovely little outbuildings and things that are, you know, as have to play catch up behind our main schedule and critical path activities, but all of them are important little pieces that we have to do. And then the testing center, for those of you, the very large testing rooms that we have for academic assistants off of the administration area. This room is looking fantastic. We've got all of the equipment and other pieces that belong somewhere else that are using as a staging area, and it's looking a lot more like a room. The curtains will be installed here shortly on those. And then, as I indicated, the glass walls that really, really help get the building condition in the right space for our finishes. Just more and more drywall installation and the curtain wall installation. This is in front of the Performing Arts Center. Really a fantastic view from that upper story looking over the whole valley. And we don't have any changes that we're bringing to the board. We did want to mention that there are some technology changes that have been negotiated in terms of when you have a project of this duration. As we all know in our personal lives, our technology upgrades and changes, and our classrooms upgrade and changes. These schools were originally all designed with short throw projectors, and we're moving to the ViewSonic touch screens. So the school district, because of certain technology funding and just the buying power of the school district, actually can procure these ViewSonics at a much, much cheaper price than the contractor can. And not only that, but you get an extended warranty directly from ViewSonic. And then in addition, there are some software packages and upgrades that come to the district that are available through the contractor. So we're looking for both schools roughly $100,000 to $200,000 in savings per school for those to be purchased directly from the school district, by the school district and furnished to the contractor for installation. So kind of a win all the way around. You get the modern technology, it costs less, you get an extended warranty, and it's just a better overall control by the district for the future.
That should go to the board.
And that'll be being brought to the board next month for those changes. Any other comment on that, Justin? Yeah, so it's lovely to get a technology upgrade. You know, no one else is going to give you your new iPhone for less than you paid for your old one. So actually, I guess the better comparison would be an iPhone from your old, what was that thing called, a BlackBerry? I'm that old too, I'm just joking. Skyline, fantastic month, once again. As you all know, on the upper bench like that, we get lots of lovely accumulation. But we couldn't have asked for a better December in order to install some of the exterior glass and some of the other things that we're able to accomplish. We're able to have long work days and some other things that sometimes get impacted during our winter construction. So the activity stair steel is in the lower portions of it that are concrete have been poured. The important thing, once again, like I said, the curtain wall framing started on the exterior. If you remember our tour a while ago, all we could envision was those steel exposed decks. The windows are going in around that at the cafeteria area. The kitchen is looking very much like a kitchen at this point. Tiling down the hallways, the grid ceiling, the administration area is getting very close in terms of finishes. The athletics lobby, we are using it. There's still some finishes that we're doing on there, but we have fire marshal approval to occupy, so they're able to use the access through the lobby in order to get into the gymnasium for our winter sports. So that's a big win. And then painting says started here, but we're quite a ways down the hallway on level 3. And then the last little piece is that stair tower on the very end of the building that we need. That's actually technically part of the next phase, but we need to construct it for life safety. It's the stairway, it's the IT rooms and such that are on the very south end of the building that we had to wait until we got the rest of the cafeteria because it's the only way to access that plaza before we could start on that. So they're rapidly working on the steel and getting that all framed in and complete at Skyline. Once again, like I said, from the west side, the parking lot that's open on the west side, so we're not tracking a lot of dirt and other things into there. We've actually got some of the reloads in already, 4 of them in already for the relocation this summer. And then we've got all of that lovely, lovely glass being going in. It's a pretty amazing view from that 3rd floor, looking out over the valley. You're a little bit above the temperature inversion on some days. So if you're ever wondering what the height of the temperature inversion is of the site, I could show you the line on the side of the building. More glass, and then the picture I said on the right, the concrete in for the learning stairs and the steel stringers are being installed in the main cafeteria. That's the kind of the grand staircase in the cafeteria area. Culinary arts, classrooms, that tile is pretty well complete at this point. The kitchen area is pretty well complete with that and looking very much like a kitchen at this point. Once again, this curtain wall framing is going in, knock on wood, slightly ahead of where we were hoping to do it. And fortunately, even better is we were able to get set up and in there and set up and working before we got all this lovely accumulation. So we don't have to try to transport it through there to get set up. They're already in there working, which has been fantastic. Like I said, here's the tile in the serving area in the kitchen, and then the metal panels on the north side of the main academic building. So the building is moving quite quickly into into a site that's going to be able to be occupied this summer. Some graphics areas, LVT flooring in the athletic entrance. It's actually not looking like a demilitarized zone anymore, so it's fantastic. You can't really see the picture right here, but the eagle that was in the old floor is in. In the old gym, it's now in the lobby, which is fantastic. So, no allegiance to Skyline. I just think it looks cool. The media center insulation, once again, all throughout the entire academic building, there's just a beehive. We've had well over 100 workers every day out there in the academic building. Just Hughes is putting forth a lot of effort to deliver this building this summer. So, and then we don't have any changes to present before the board this month, but once again, it's the same thing with the technology, and then once again, like you said, the furniture here. And then I failed to mention that we're actually meeting with the Cypress staff for furniture over, is it next week? Yeah, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, to work on getting the furniture squared away for Cypress. Ahead of the curve. Any questions?
So we aren't in a situation where our construction is interrupting winter sports at Skyline? I mean, parking, yes, but not, we're in the lobby,
You can go through the lobby, yes. Workers are there during the day finishing items. Students can use it to access that, and in the evening, they have the access through the lobby, yes. There's obviously constrictions, right there. We're still a little choked going into those buildings and such like that, but we're not.
okay. So there is some inconvenience.
There is still some
Going on.
inconvenience, but they can still walk right through that
Yeah,
area, yes.
okay, great,
It's
thanks.
walkable. It's not,
But no games are affected, no games or any matches.
bring your own popcorn still, so.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Today, Don, I wish that I had remembered to ask you about this beforehand, but a thing that I continue to hear about in my community right now is, we have said that for security, that we would like to at some point have our elementaries, fences around our elementaries. I'd love at some point soon to hear kind of what our plan is on that, what our thinking is, because I'm being asked by my community, especially as regards the dog poop situation, which we're going to be studying later, but it has brought up this issue of security, and I think my community would like to hear that. So,
No,
thank you.
I think we're at a point where we can schedule maybe a little special something at 5 o'clock on that item. Yeah. You bet.
Thank you, gentlemen. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to our audit report. And Todd is in charge, but is he all? Are you it? Okay, I was going to say he's brought friends.
I don't know if that's the best transition from dog poop to audits, but here we go.
Thrilling.
She did say you brought friends, and so
I
I'm
did.
happy to hear that I'm a friend to Todd still.
Absolutely. So thank you for the opportunity to take a few minutes and review the financial report and the accompanying external audit. Matt Geddes here with Squire. I'll turn the time over to him to talk through the audit, and then I'll field any questions that you might have with regards to the financial statements.
Thank you, Todd. Squire was engaged to perform the audit of your financial statements as well as a couple other reports that we'll talk about. The first report, as I mentioned, is we performed an audit of your financial statements. As an auditor, we're required to perform the audit in accordance with government auditing standards as well as generally accepted auditing standards. And we issue an opinion on your financial statements. And that opinion is that the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial positions and activities of the district. Non-auditor language is As a board, as management utilizes the information presented in the financial report, you can reasonably rely that that information is accurate. In addition to an audit of the financial statements, we perform an audit in accordance with uniform guidance or an audit of your federal awards. You receive significant federal funding throughout the year, and we're required to perform an audit of some of those federal awards. Those awards that we audit rotate or are subject to rotation each year. As auditors, we take a risk-based approach and identify which programs we audit. This year, we audited your Education Stabilization Fund, also ESSER in GEARS is what that fund is known as, your Child Nutrition Fund and your Medicaid cluster, and we issue an opinion on those programs. And as it relates to the Child Nutrition Cluster and the Medicaid cluster, we issue an unmodified opinion that you complied in all material respects with the compliance requirements outlined for those two programs. As it relates to your Education Stabilization Fund, we did issue a modified opinion related to that. There's one compliance area that we perform tests on related to sometimes known as Davis-Bacon or wage certification rates as it relates to your construction projects. One of those requirements is you're required to receive some certified payroll information from contractors that they're paying the appropriate wage rates. As we performed our tests, those wage rate certifications had not yet been obtained. As we did obtain those subsequently, the wage rates were appropriate, so there were no concerns on the appropriate wage rates paid by the contractors. These aren't wage rates paid by you, but because they're paid with federal dollars, the contractor has to pay them a required wage rate and certify to you that they've done that. You have subsequently obtained many of those certified wage rates. Additionally, the district's put in controls and processes that Todd can talk about to ensure that that's done in the future. Other than those certified wage rates, our opinion is, as it relates to the Education Stabilization Fund, that the district complied in all material respects with the compliance requirements outlined. So other than that one component. In addition to the federal compliance, the Office of the Utah State Auditor issues an audit guide that outlines specific state compliance requirements that we're required to look at. Obviously, we don't look at all state compliance requirements, but those specified by the state auditor we do look at. And we issue an opinion on compliance related to those compliance requirements outlined in that guide. And that opinion is that the district complied in all material respects with the compliance requirements outlined in the audit guide of the Office of the Utah State Auditor. There was one item that we identified during those tests that was an other matter. So you complied in all material respects, but there was an identified non-compliance item that was immaterial. And that was related to your budgetary compliance. There were a couple funds that you approve as the board a budget for those funds. And a couple of those funds, the Capital Projects Fund, the District Activity Programs Fund, and the School Lunch Fund were over budget with final expenditures. That is not to say that those expenditures were not approved and appropriate. However, they were not budgeted for at the time for the fiscal year, June 30th, 2023. So just wanted to highlight a couple of those items for you. Overall, we appreciate our association with the district. I can say, as we work with Todd and his team and Chris Lewis and his team, your finances are in order. We have a lot of questions as auditors, but they're able to identify the questions that we have, answers to those questions, and provide us information for those. That was very quick. Any questions related to that Todd can answer?
Your findings about the school lunch fund, are you saying that we didn't budget enough for it, or are you saying that
You spent more than you budgeted.
Oh, okay.
It has nothing to do with the amount of revenue that's
Okay.
brought in.
Yeah.
Was that due to rising food costs that we just didn't foresee, or what was
It
the?
had to do with two things. One is that we receive USDA commodities, and it's never certain as to what level those commodities will be by the end of the fiscal year. But we have to book an entry both on the revenue side and the expenditure side when those commodities are reported. and we received more commodities than we had anticipated. So that caused the expenditure to go over the budget. A second element had to do with our inventories. When we carry our inventories, they're on the balance sheet, but then when we use them, we expense them. And we had drawn down inventories quicker than we had anticipated as well, again, causing the expenditures to rise above the budgeted amount, but it was all a product that we had on hand and sufficient funds to pay for.
And you mentioned those are non-compliance notes, so what does that mean? It's just a tag that says this happened, and then we move on?
It's a reality that you were over budget, and you should be better and do better into the future. But there's nothing that you should address as it relates to the past.
No, like impact is what I'm saying, no
No.
consequence to that, no.
You'll probably have or will get a letter from the state indicating what is your corrective action plan, for lack of better terms, which you've identified already and addressed.
Yeah. And those notes are really for the business administrator to go through and take a look at what are our regular procedures and what needs to be improved so that that's not repeated.
I just want to say that I feel like this is just such great news. I'm thrilled about this audit, and I really appreciate Chris and your entire department, Todd, and I hope that they get an adequate celebration for great auditing. And I also have heard from a couple of different sources lately about how we have some of the best in our accounting department. And so I really feel lucky, and this is a reflection of that expertise.
So not to make Chris's head bigger than it needs to be. We do, at Squire, we audit 23 school districts in the state of Utah. You have an incredible team. Don't remember I said that, Chris.
We recognize that we do, and we really appreciate it, Chris. Please pass our thanks on to your team and you. We recognize the work that you do and appreciate it. And Todd as well, thank you. Any other thoughts or questions? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to bond refunding.
We're always looking for opportunities to save the district money, and as it comes about, we have two general bond series, the 2012 and 2013 series, that are callable at this time. It turns out also that in October of last year, we had hit the peak of the interest rates rising, and in the meantime, they've dropped about 130 basis points. And so looking at the economic opportunity and seeing that our bonds are callable, we invited our financial advisors, LRB Public Finance. I'd like to note that Dale Okerlund and Nate Robertson are here with us today. They took a look at those bonds and determined an estimated savings of about $650,000 over the next 10 years if we were to exercise that call option. So what we're looking for here is administrative direction to go ahead and prepare a board bond resolution for a refunding for a subsequent board meeting.
Do you all have questions or would like to address them? Do you
I support it.
understand?
Sounds straightforward.
Is this something we vote on, or we just direct?
No, this is administrative direction. I will take the nods and
Yep.
the winks that we're good to put that resolution together.
I think our lack of questions would indicate that we are supportive of that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being here, you guys.
Were we fast enough? Thanks for being proactive and like being thoughtful and aware of us to do that.
All right. Doug's up. On to the exciting
This is the
and
most
thrilling.
exciting training of the year. Board ethics
We're gonna
and
move on to board
OPMA.
ethics.
Fascinating.
I did ask Doug if he was going to include farm animals as per.
No
Mike's
farm animals
presentation.
tonight.
I said that's a
Sorry.
pretty high bar. Just saying.
But I do have just a short presentation, I hope. I'd like to be able to discuss two items tonight. One is the matter of ethics, board ethics, and the other is OPMA, the Open Public Meetings Act. Board members are required to receive some training on that every year. And I think my training is shorter than that of the Boards Association, the Utah State Boards Association. So I think that's why we've opted to go with mine, even though it's a little more, a little drier than I think the other. Let's start with the ethics training. There's a couple of different ways we can discuss ethics. There are a few sources of ethics for board members. The first is the Public Employees Ethics Act. That is in 6716, 1 et sec, and that is the part of the state code that requires all public employees, including boards, with respect to conflicts of interest, gifts, et cetera. The other sources are district policy itself. In subsection 2 of our district policies, we have enumerated what your ethics are that you have passed for yourselves as board members. A lot of that has been kind of distilled in a couple of different places. One of those places is our board handbook. And I thought tonight, I've gone through multiple sources of this in the past. I thought tonight what I would do is just reiterate what's in the board handbook. We're going to be adopting a new board handbook coming up here in the near future. And so I thought I would just give you a section of the board handbook that is indeed, that deals with board ethics. And I just cut and pasted 3 sections of the board handbook for you. And I'm just going to go through those quickly. If you have any questions, please stop me and we can discuss them. As I mentioned, the first area is conflicts of interest and financial disclosures. The board, under the Public Employees Ethics Act, board members have an obligation, as do other public employees, to disclose any potential conflicts of interest. So if you are engaged in any business that does business with the district or competes in some way with district functions, that sort of thing, you are obliged under that state statute to provide a disclosure of that. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't engage in the business. It just means that you need to disclose the business. Now, we have created a little process, and it's, I think, been quite useful. Jared Gardner and I sit down and go through these with my paralegal, Joe Kramer, and we discuss those forms that come in that disclose the conflicts of interest. Every employee in their training, their annual training, is apprised of their duty to file a form if there's a potential conflict of interest. We sit down and go through those forms, and we advise employees, and we would do the same for board members, on how to avoid those conflicts if indeed there was a potential conflict of interest. We don't call them conflicts, we simply call them potential conflicts, and then we advise on how people can avoid them. So if you have a conflict of interest, it does need to be identified, it does need to be disclosed, and we will work with you on how to avoid those conflicts. Now, in the Public Employees Ethics Act, there are also provisions regarding gifts. There are also provisions regarding other ways of influence peddling, using your position in some way to obtain a benefit for yourselves, a pecuniary benefit for yourselves or a family member or someone else that's close to you. Those things are also prohibited under the Ethics Act. And under that, the last sentence of that section, it just says, these requirements are designed to prevent board members from being placed in a position where interest in public schools and pecuniary interests might come in conflict. Board members shall strive to avoid any appearance of a conflict of interest, even if a conflict may not actually exist. Okay, so there's that. The next section, confidentiality. Board members do have an ethical obligation with respect to confidentiality. You sign a confidentiality agreement when you do your Vector trainings. Basically, the idea is that you as board members have access to confidential information. Now, we only share confidential information internally on a need-to-know basis. Therefore, it's not as though board members or any member of the district staff or schools has full access to any information. However, on a need-to-know basis, you as board members may come into contact with some confidential information, including records like employment records or health records or student records. Those kinds of things are records for which you need to maintain confidentiality. And if you have any questions or concerns about those, you are welcome to seek for some guidance or advice from me. But in the process of you performing your duties, just recognize that you will have access to confidential records. And in performing your duties, it is incumbent upon you to maintain that confidentiality. Any questions with respect to any of those? All right. I didn't think so. You guys are great, a great audience. Thank you. Board member code of conduct. Now, you all have adopted for yourselves a code of conduct. Some of those things are right in district policy. So in addition to subsection 2, there are district policies for which you have identified yourselves as also being subjects. Those are, the first one is the district code of conduct for educators. That's in Article 5C14. A few years ago, we created a specific code of conduct for district employees, not just teachers, but for employees. Those go above and beyond the Utah Administrative Code, which is also a code for educator standards. That's in R277217. You also have agreed that you will abide by district policy with respect to discrimination, harassment, and retaliation, and district policy regarding causes for discipline up to and including termination. So as board members, you have adopted for yourselves the responsibility to be compliant with those district policies, which is a great thing. And on the back of that sheet, you have also committed yourselves to a variety of things. 4 of those 18, I would say, directly reflect on your ethics. One is number 6, that board members will approach each issue with an open mind and show respect for diverse opinions. Number 11, have the courage to share personal perspectives, but respect perspectives and intentions of others and defer ultimate decisions to the board. I think one of the ethical obligations of the board is to maintain conduct as a board as opposed to acting as individuals while you're acting in your official capacities. Number 12, to respect the role and decision-making authority of the superintendent in communications with constituents and colleagues, both public and private. And lastly, number 18, take concern and complaints to the superintendent and appropriate administrators and refrain from trying to resolve concerns unilaterally. Once again, that is part of your obligation as a board member to remember that you act as a body and not as individuals. So I thought that was a nice little summary of some of your ethical obligations for the year. Any questions or concerns?
If you can believe it, I have a question on
No,
this.
I appreciate that.
I know, I'm a total question friend. My precinct has a very strong lunch culture. And
Lunch
I would
culture.
like you to comment on ethics surrounding someone buying me lunch or me buying someone lunch.
Very good. So this falls right under the Public Employees Ethics Act, under the gifts section of that act, okay? Under the gifts section of that act, it discusses that it is prohibited for you to accept gifts that would include any type of gift of a pecuniary benefit. That would, it could, under 2 circumstances. One, if it would impact your decision-making as a member of the board. So basically, if you're being bribed. And number 2, if that gift exceeds, it actually says, if you receive a significant number of gifts that exceed the $50 value.
So if they bought me several.
So as a general rule, we basically say
Chick-fil-A number 3s.
try to keep your gifts under $50. Chick-fil-A,
So you
the
can't
way
get the lobster
Ben
Market Street.
works Chick-fil-A, he can keep it under $5, which is pretty remarkable, if he's there with his,
Have them pay for it with their points.
yeah, their points, exactly.
that's
That's where I was headed with that, yeah.
I knew you'd have a backdoor.
Yep. Now, I will say that the Ethics Act, it is critical to support and abide by the Ethics Act.
Or if
Those
I
are-
bought someone else lunch,
What's that?
if I bought someone else lunch.
Again, influence peddling can go both directions, right? Somebody can bribe you, and you can also,
If it looked like I was bribing them,
sure,
okay.
exactly.
Well, I will not do that.
Yeah, and if it in any way is going to impact your decision-making as a board member or any non-pecuniary gift that you receive multiple times, it's in excess of $50, okay? Okay. Right on, got it. Thanks. Any other questions? All right, awesome. Moving on, OPMA. You guys have become accustomed to my Open Public and Meetings Act presentation. It is supposed to give you serenity. I have not followed the superintendent's format for PowerPoint presentations for the very reason that I believe that you do need a little serenity as we go through this presentation. So I hope you enjoy the photographs.
Thank you for the rebellion.
Yeah, I hope you enjoy the photographs as we go through. Okay, OPMA. Very basically, the intent of OPMA is to make sure that your business is conducted transparently in the full view of the public. You are public servants, and therefore your actions, your business should be transacted in the public view. An OPMA training is required every year. Under OPMA meetings, the central tenet of OPMA is to discuss what constitutes a meeting and how those meetings are to be conducted. Meetings are the convening of the board with a quorum present to discuss or receive public comments about or act upon a matter over which the board has jurisdiction or advisory power. So that is conducting your business. Now, a meeting is not a meeting if no funds are expended. Discussion is only for the purpose of administrative or operational matters where no formal actions are taken. And some of that comes from state case law. There's actually a bill that should be coming forward. Ben made me aware of it last week. That actually further explains that. It will give you a little bit of additional leeway in terms of having discussions that have to do with administrative matters, logistical matters, so that you're not caught unaware. And number three, or it just constitutes a chance gathering. If you all happen to show up at the same time at Ruth's Chris, I would just advise you, please don't discuss board business, but you're welcome to sit down and have dinner together, okay?
Pay for your own meals.
Yeah. Are those or items? So it's
Yep.
1 or 2 or 3, or they and?
So 1, 2, and 3, and or, I'm sorry, 1 and 2 or 3 is actually the way you should probably read it. So it is a meeting if no funds are expended and discussions are only for the purpose of administrative matters, okay? Where no formal actions are taken. And then either that or if it's a chance meeting. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Good question. Meetings have to be properly noticed. Stacy does a terrific job of taking care of that. Has to be done 24 hours in advance. It has to include your agenda, has to be posted to the state website, and it has to be posted. Your annual schedule is also to be posted. And you can have emergency meetings. You all don't have emergency meetings very often. At the charter school, we have a few more of those just because of the nature of the beast. But if you do have emergency meetings, and you can't notice them with 24 hours or more, you can still do them if they are of an urgent nature, and you do your best to make the best possible notice of those meetings. Agenda items, you should adhere to agenda items. In your public meetings, you shouldn't take action on anything that's not on the agenda. A board can discuss things that are raised by the public during a public meeting, but you cannot take action on those things. Oh, I am not scrolling through here, Ben. I thought you were doing this for me. Sorry. Look at this. We are cruising. So we are all the way down to public participation. Generally, we like public participation, and we have allowed for public participation in our meetings. The meetings are open to the public unless they are closed. I know that sounds a little axiomatic, but it's true. The district generally allows for public comment, but we do require that the public sign up to speak unless it is a hearing, and at a hearing, people still sign up to speak, but we allow them to sign up pretty much any time up to and including right before the hearing. Folks cannot disrupt public meetings. That can actually be constitute a Class B misdemeanor. Minutes and records, again, Stacy does a great job of taking care of those things. We have to keep minutes, and they have to be posted. Draft minutes must be made available, and approved minutes shall be made available 3 days after their adoption.
Hey, Doug?
Yes, ma'am.
Just to be clear, there is not a law that says that we have to allow public comment during our meetings, correct?
That is actually, that is correct, 100%.
So we've just chosen to do that. And is that, I know somebody was saying that that might come up as part of a legislative action. Is that?
Yeah, it's possible. I'm not as familiar with the bill as probably the superintendent or Ben are, but that is, as of right now, that is the law. There is no legal requirement for us to allow for public participation except for hearings.
Isn't what you're describing there the distinction between a public meeting and an open meeting? Like there's a public meeting and that's open to that's available to the public, and our business is performed in front of the public.
That's correct.
But it doesn't necessarily constitute an open meeting where the public is allowed to participate. Is that?
Yeah, that's not the way the
fair way
statute
to
describes it, but that is conceptually an excellent way to think about it, because our meetings are open to the public, but they're not open for debate and discussion and those kinds of things, right? We have some limitations on how the public can engage the board, and we'll continue to maintain those limitations only because it allows for greater decorum and a better working relationship. However, we have traditionally allowed it. We've done it according to our own policies, and folks can sign up to speak in a public meeting for 3 minutes at a time or up to 15 minutes if there are additional.
It's changed. We changed it to 45.
Or 45 minutes.
Didn't we? I'm pretty sure it's 45.
I thought it was still 15, but okay. All right, and that time is divided up among the individuals who will be allowed to address the board. But again, that's not part of the OPMA. That's what we've allowed pursuant to our own policies as a district. We can have electronic meetings if we need them. Don't confuse electronic meetings with participating remotely. You are allowed to participate remotely. This new bill that's coming up will actually define that even further. You are allowed to be present if you are participating remotely. But if we need to have an electronic meeting is basically defined as a meeting where you have an anchor location, and then all individuals will be participating electronically. These are the kinds of meetings that would be held likely in the event of some sort of a natural disaster or something like that. There's no other reason to hold an electronic meeting anymore where remote participation is so easily accessible. Okay, now I just want you to take a break for a minute. Okay. Tell me when you're ready. Okay. Okay, here we go. Closed meetings. We can close our meetings. There's only a certain number of topics that can be discussed in closed meetings, but closed meetings can be, we can close meetings in circumstances where we're discussing an individual's character or competence or health. That includes mental health, pending or imminent litigation, matters or acquisition of real estate or property, deployment of security systems, investigations of alleged criminal conduct, or certain deliberations and discussions involving procurement. There are some limitations on that, but those are the basic areas that qualify for closing a meeting. We've closed meetings many times before. As you know, it takes a 2/3 vote. The board announces the reason for the closed meeting, and you take a vote on whether to close a meeting by an audible vote of each member of the board. No resolutions, rules, regulations, contracts, or appointments may be approved in a closed meeting. All of that must be done in an open meeting. Therefore, if those things are being discussed in a closed meeting, the closed meeting must be ended, open back up to the public, and then the action can be taken in the open, in an open meeting. Okay. Closed meetings continued. We've already talked about that. The board decides who attends those meetings, and individuals need to identify themselves if they are in those meetings. Anybody attending those meetings needs to be identified. With respect to meetings closed for the purpose of character, professional competence, or physical or mental health, or for security systems, instead of having a recording of that meeting, the chair may sign an affidavit affirming the purpose of the meeting alone. We've done that in the past as well. Minutes can be kept but are not required. Okay. All right, another quick breather. Common mistakes, conference calls, text messaging, those kinds of things often can constitute a quorum if too many board members are discussing business over those means of communication. Failing to cite reasons for a closed meeting is another common mistake. Disclosing information learned in a closed meeting is not a good thing. Penalties for doing any of the above. The recording of a closed meeting can be made public. Final actions can be voided. And if someone is found in violation of the OPMA, and that individual could be charged with a Class B misdemeanor. And that is it. Any other questions or concerns that we need to talk about Open and Public Meetings Act?
Mike, will you just clarify, like text messages, when we get a message that's information, as
Yep.
long as we're not discussing things on that?
Yep, absolutely.
That
So
we would potentially vote on, correct?
let's just, for
give me an
example,
yeah.
if the board president or the board vice president sent out a text that was informational only, it wasn't intended for any type of engagement or an exchange of discussion regarding a particular subject that was part of the board's business, then that would be fine. Again, those are administrative matters. They're not those are not circumstances where the board is actually taking action, expending money, or doing any of those things that would be considered board business.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Thanks, Doug.
You are welcome.
Okay, we will go ahead and take a break till 7 o'clock and reconvene here at 7 for our formal meeting.